Dr. Neal Jetton. Dr. Neal, thank you so very much for making the time and welcome to Channel Africa.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a
Yeah,
privilege to be here.
indeed. How deep is the problem of cybersecurity, especially in the African continent?
Yeah, I would say that, to specifically call out Africa or South Africa, I think would be incorrect. I think across the globe, you are seeing cybercrime as a major factor. So I, as the Interpol Cybercrime Director, get to speak to law enforcement across the globe. And I've had the privilege this year of going to European regional, conferences, Asian regional conferences, and African regional conferences. And we ask law enforcement there, what are the biggest threats that they're seeing that their law enforcement agencies are facing? And it is undoubtedly almost always cybercrime is the number one, threat. And I think it's because it's just so pervasive, is the fact that, I mean, I don't know, you have a smartphone in your pocket, in front of you. I think 60% of the world has a smartphone. I think the number that I heard in Africa is there's 500 million internet users. So you're looking at a very large ecosystem to be targeted, and so I think you're going to continue to see cybercrime on the rise, just simply for the fact that everyone at any time, any day, it can be a potential target because they have a phone or an iPad or a laptop with them at all time. But I will say that I think law enforcement, including that in South Africa, recognizes that it needs to be prioritized and making great strides in combating it.
Yeah, Dr. Jetton, and I'm glad that you are expanding it to the globe, not to the African continent alone. But let's then talk about capacity. Do global organizations have the capacity to essentially curb cyber attacks?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think the magic and the best strategy for combating cybercrime is working together. No country can do it alone, no matter where it is in the world. No organization, even Interpol, with our 196 member countries, can do it. We require cooperation with the law enforcement, but more than that, not just law enforcement. We require cybersecurity authorities to be a part of the conversation. It requires private partners, the private sector, the businesses who are looking at these threats every day and developing tools. But it also requires each and every one of us to be at least, to think about what we're doing online, to practice better cyber hygiene. I realize, we say that all the time, and it probably becomes tiresome to hear. I mean, we do public awareness campaigns, and you think, is this even effective? I mean, doesn't everybody know? But clearly, the message still needs to get out, especially to those vulnerable communities. I'm talking about children, the elderly, who really are not aware of just how widespread this problem is.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. Then, how much impact, in your view, is contributed by geopolitical conflicts, as I've indicated in my intro, in Africa and other parts of the world?
Yeah, so I'm assuming that that will always play a role in in cooperation, but that's where I think the magic and the beauty of Interpol is. So we stay out of the geopolitical fray. In fact, we're a neutral organization for 102 years. We work on a law enforcement to law enforcement communication channel, and so I'll just say that on my team, I have 30 nationalities, and a lot of them you would think if they were listed may not work. You wouldn't think would work well with maybe an American, but they do. Because in this context, we are really focused as one team to combat, transnational cybercrime. So I'm not naive to the fact that geopolitics exists, of course, but within Interpol, we try to simply focus on, making the world a safer place and supporting our member countries to combat transnational crime.
Yeah, you just mentioned about AI and smartphones as we're in the digital era. Dr. Jordan, then the question is, the likes of artificial intelligence and cybersecurity, would you say the resolving of AI has had a greater effect in the rise of cyber attacks? And I'm asking this because, there is an education that is needed. I mean, parents are just giving kids these cell phones without actual knowledge of that. Would you say that that has played a part in necessitating cyber crimes?
Yeah, so I definitely think, I mean, any sort of technology is a double-edged sword, right? We can use it for good, and there are definitely, everyone uses, various chat bots and ask questions and things like that for AI. But what we have seen primarily within Interpol is that our member countries are combating AI, like AI-enabled cybercrime, as it relates to phishing. So whereas used to you'd be able to get an email and maybe you'd say like, well, this doesn't really make sense, or there's something grammatically wrong or an incorrectly spelled word. But now with AI being used to generate these emails at scale, they're very, very effective. In fact, they can tailor them to culture, to country. And so, yeah, so it's that part is very, very difficult to combat. So my so I have a son who I just has a phone for the first time this year, so a smartphone. So we had held off forever, as long as we could, and I'm like, nope. So we've had to have some serious conversations about etiquette and responsible use of the phone. I will say, I had mentioned vulnerable communities and being elderly and children, and so one of the things that we've done recently, we did something focused on Asia South Pacific. And so we brought together a youth cyber hygiene webinar, and we brought in experts from various fields to talk about responsible use. And I thought, there's probably nobody that's going to be that interested in this topic. I had no idea. I didn't know what to expect. We had more than 800 children, parents, and teachers attend this webinar. So there's clearly a need to educate, especially, like I said, the elderly and the youth on the threats that are out there, especially considering, sexploitation, image-based sexual abuse, that sort of thing. There needs to be a greater awareness and at least a very honest conversation about what is actually out there.
Dr. Jetton, it goes without saying, you and I can agree that Interpol is one of those important players in the space, and we want it to work. Then the question is, what measures are you putting in place as Interpol to really mitigate cyber attacks, and how are you adapting, as we're talking about adaptation? How are you adapting to evolving space of these cyber crimes? Because these criminals are getting smarter by day.
They are. So what we have done, one of the things that we have done this year, for the first time since COVID, we've reconvened our global cybercrime expert group. So what we have asked for is from 196 countries, we have asked them to provide subject matter experts from their cybercrime units, including South Africa, who has provided a representative. And so what we have done, from 85 countries have responded so far with 180 experts. And we've actually brought in some of the best experts in the world from the private sector about AI, about sexploitation, about various emerging technologies. We've brought them to in person and virtually to actually have these conversations. So being able to convene these experts in the room with the private sector I think is a very, very effective tool. Because yeah, we understand that because the way that cybercrime works on a global scale, that you think we can't just have a few countries that are very well adapted and very well resourced to combat it, because we know that in any country there are big cyber criminals and their activities will affect victims across the globe. So what we want to do is the phrase, rising tide raises all boats. We want to build everybody's law enforcement capacity to better combat these serious crimes.
Yeah, just as a parting shot before I let you go, I know you have to run.
Sure.
What governments can do to protect their nations from cyber crimes? What is it that they can do, government and private sector?
Yeah, so I'll say, so I won't speak for governments because law enforcement, but I will say this, that I would hope that all governments support their law enforcement and prioritize cybercrime, like build specific cybercrime units and provide the resources and what they can, the tools and training, because it's very, very specialized. So that would be is to prioritize cybercrime. Make it a priority, and I know that that's more difficult than others. And the last thing to just close out is I can't understate, or I can't overstate how effective the public-private partnership is to combating cybercrime, whether it's using threat intelligence, using the tools that the private sectors provide. Without that being part of the strategy, it's going to be ineffective to combat cybercrime at a global level.
Yeah, and the role of business in cybersecurity, how important is that?
Critical. I mean, they're the experts. They're the
Mhm.
ones, especially concerning law enforcement. We're putting out fires day in, day out, going from one investigation to the next. They're able to actually kind of sit back and look at what's ahead and look at the emerging tech and develop these tools and technologies. And hopefully then that law enforcement can utilize, to combat these criminals.